I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth.
What was that?
Well, we're rolling.
My name is Madison Timmons. I have sun poisoning.
Oh dear.
No, I do.
Oh dear.
And she used the sunscreen. That's the thing. That's the crazy thing.
I'm Chris Susi, and I stay indoors.
Yeah, that one took me by surprise, hence why I messed up my own name, because my muscles are just like super tight up my neck right now from my very white condition.
People. The sun wants to kill you. Remember that
does.
always. When you go out into the sun, all it's doing is sitting up there in the sky going, I am going to kill you.
I've tried to combat that too, but it did not work. So here we are. So yeah, if I'm not like moving my head as much, that is why. But anyways, welcome to Ghostmail.
Ghostmail.
I didn't get to introduce myself.
I'm sorry. We forgot that you have a camera now.
That's right.
I do. And 3, 2, 1, bam. JT Cam, what up? Not going to be used a lot, but it's here.
I thought he was saying his name is JT Cam. I was like, that works.
JT Cam?
He can be JT Cam.
JT Cam.
Hey, JT Cam. JTC.
All right.
Every time you get a camera angle, I'll only remember that one comment that was like, I kind of like JT as just a photo.
Just a little photo.
I'll never forget that comment. That was just so funny.
I thought that was hilarious.
And then everyone like came to my defense and was like, no, that's the. And I was just like, oh boy.
Well,
anyway.
You know,
Let's hit
it is what it is. But yeah, so we're going to be doing a ghost mail today. Before we get into it, only announcement we have for you is to join us over on Patreon. Today we're doing a ton of Parajunkie stories, and some of them are actually here on live with us, which is a super fun treat because every once in a while we get those where they'll actually be on the live while we're reading the story, and they can add some supplementary details or things like that while we're reading it instead of us having to email people back and try to get more details every once in a while. So it's pretty fun. But other than that, we have lots of fun things going on Patreon. We're currently working on where we're going to go for our next investigation.
Yes, the Rylander was insane.
Yeah, the Rylander was a big success. Really fun night. Everybody had such a good time on the live watching, especially watching Debria locked in the basement and losing her ever-loving mind.
Ever-loving mind.
If she would just learn a little self-control, she wouldn't have to go through it because it's
so
wildly entertaining. And normally I would reserve not torturing people, but Debria is a special breed of hilarity that ensues. So yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to see early access to that full live and also early access to once we cut together the full episode on the actual investigation with all of our highlights and stuff, join us on Patreon because they always get it first before everybody else. And so it's also really great over there. Really lovely folks, as you'll hear. Really like-minded paranormal folks as well, since they're sending in their stories.
And we have over 300 minutes of live investigation from the Rylander.
Yeah, and more in the evidence locker. From
evidence locker.
Yes, the evidence locker. So, that gets dropped tomorrow.
Yes.
All right, let's get into it.
So we're going to start out with Jessica. And Jessica, who's on the live stream, if this is your story, let us know. If not, Jessica, who this story does belong to, we're excited to read this. All right. Hi, Chris, Madison, JT, and anyone else listening.
Hello.
I found you guys last year while planning a trip to Savannah, which got canceled due to the hurricane. Well, I'm so sorry about that. I'm assuming that this was Helene.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah, we read our ghost mails as they come in order, and we were a little bit behind, so this might have been during that period of time. But I'm planning to go later this year, so Jessica, if that hasn't already happened yet, we hope to see you at the Paranormal Museum. One thing about myself, as I tend to notice paranormal experiences after they happen, I've had a few. I am also a mental health counselor, so I hear a lot. I think it's helpful. I'm one of the few that believe them and don't automatically go towards hallucinations. Anyway, I wanted to share one major one. I was living with a roommate for a few years. Let's call her Jamie. We were close and became friends while I lived there. She had 3 kids, and though I was working in childcare at the time, so I loved it. Jamie was going back to school and often helped with the kids. I often helped with the kids. One day we had gone to the mall and decided to get a Ouija board and have fun with it. You're the fun babysitter. Though I voiced it was a crazy decision, I agreed. We played with it a little when we got home and nothing happened. A few weeks passed and her daughter was having a slumber party and was upstairs in her room near mine and Jamie. And Jamie was downstairs listening to music and drinking with the neighbors. I was in bed. Her daughter knocked on my door and said there was a man in her room. That's terrifying.
Don't like that.
That's probably the worst thing you could hear, but I peeked in and they said he left. I went downstairs and told Jamie. She got really angry about it and said no man could get upstairs and to tell the girls to go to sleep. She wasn't going up there. Her daughter told me about it the next day and she became furious at me for not doing anything about it. When I reminded her I had come down to tell her, she denied it completely. She said she never spoke to me. Oh, God. And that she didn't speak to me for about a week, then called me one day when I was out telling me the girls had used the Ouija board that night and scared themselves. This, to me, explains the man in the room I didn't see. After this, though, our relationship was never the same. I had planned to move out for school, and it stayed that way. We had a few interactions after, but she was hostile each time, acting like it was such an inconvenience. Do y'all think the Ouija board had something to do with her change towards me after? Was something else in control when she talked to me that night? She was drinking, but I've seen her get very intoxicated and she still remembered everything after. I have a few other stories I'll send later. Thank you for everything you do for this community and stay spooky, y'all. Jessica.
So that was Jessica.
Great.
Yeah, she's on.
Fantastic. Yeah. Jessica, I do feel like there is a possibility that this could have been some kind of encounter with an entity taking control, especially because we've talked about this on the show a few times because we've gotten similar stories where, people do the slumber party Ouija board thing and then, their friend starts acting bizarre or what have you. And so being that children were the ones hosting this Ouija session, there's a high chance they could have let something in, not knowing, and it could have been taking advantage of that situation. Because it is really strange that her demeanor towards you completely shifted afterwards. Because it didn't seem like, at least from what you're saying, it did not seem to me, at least, that it was warranted.
Right. That reaction being so large and severe does suggest a little bit of oppression. And especially when you think of how the story goes, girls see man in their room. When you go to check that there is no man, you go to tell the mother, and the mother reacts with aggression and anger. Where did the man go if not down to kind of whisper to the mother? And there's
right.
Like, again, putting the writer cap on, that's how you would tell the story. Basically, the spirit would want to sever any responsible people away so that it can have more dominion in the family and in the household. So there is like room for that ideology that a manipulative spirit would seek to control the house, and the person they would seek to control would be the mother, and then they would want you out.
Right. Well, and I do think it's interesting too, because when I was reading that she got upset that you came and told her that there was a man in her daughter's room, that's not a standard reaction for parents.
Exactly.
I mean, I just personally have never met a parent who would be like, there's no man, tell him to go to sleep. Like, that's, at the very least, they would go check. So
yeah, or put their children at ease. Right. You know, go in person. But if it were a case of subtle oppression, possession kind of thing, that makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And, you know, maybe the intoxicated mind is a little easier to ply. Maybe it is a question of the spirit was actually around for a while, you know, and had been at work for a while, and this was just the culmination of its efforts.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it came from that is a good point, that it could have come from the first Ouija board session where it appeared like nothing really happened, but, you know.
And that's, you know, the progression of a dark spirit and entity. It's not trying to like show up and just like swing. It's trying to insinuate itself. It's trying to make it so that the environment is more conducive for its existence. So it's slowly, you know, breeding fear into the children, breeding, you know, aggression and anger into the parent, so that the relationships are all strained, because that strain is really something that those spirits can feed off of or manipulate.
Jessica said, right, she was normally protective.
Right.
Yeah. Which makes total sense.
Right. Yeah, because there's nothing to be mad about when children are afraid of something in the dark.
Right.
You know, that you don't blame the child. It's, you know, there's so many aspects of it, and it can get frustrating, sure. But in the end, almost every parent would agree that the trick is to give them the tools to deal with what they're afraid of, rather than just dismissing them and not even going and checking.
Right. And the fact that she kind of 180'd on you even after the fact, and had such hostility towards you for all of the rest of the interactions you had, just doesn't add up, besides being that, you know, you were kind of seen as the person who could make sense of the situation and whatever entity, if that is what is at play, it wouldn't want you to be around for, and would purposely try to shove you out of that situation. But it's an interesting story nonetheless.
Yeah, that's a solid Ouija board story. It falls into kind of a common class of Ouija board story, which is we played with the Ouija board and it altered the personality of someone, although this was not a person who used the Ouija board, but somebody in the direct influential area.
Right. And I mean, yeah, of course, like on a more illogical stance, like, sure, it could have been that she was drinking, she didn't remember the interaction, and maybe she just had a little bit more of a irritated demeanor when you said it the first time and she didn't remember. But it just doesn't add up why she would be so aggressive for everything else.
Right.
Unless she just lost her mind. But it doesn't seem like there'd be any reason why she have such like a drastic personality shift. But yeah, well, Jessica, it says that you have other stories, so please let us know what other stories you have. And also, it's a good point now to mention, if you guys have any paranormal stories that you would like to send to us, you can send it to Ghostmail at hauntedcitypodcast.com. We love reading y'all's ghost stories. But Jessica, thank you so much. And yeah, if you think of any other details that you want to add in, just leave it in the chat and we'll add it at the end. But all right, so next one, we have another para-junkie. We have Reagan here.
Whoop, whoop.
Woo, woo, woo.
Whoop, whoop.
Okay, so, hey guys, Reagan, or Rhea here, or Ray probably is.
Makes sense.
Yeah, a long-time listener, first-time caller, and para-junkie. Yay! This is my first ghost mail of many. I've had paranormal experiences since childhood, most often physically feeling the touch of a presence and seeing shadows. I have a plethora of stories to share with you, but I will begin with this one. Excellent. So in December of 2019, my grandfather had reached the end of his battle with Alzheimer's. I'm very sorry to hear about that, Reagan. I was living in Hendersonville, North Carolina at the time and had rushed home to Charlotte for the weekend to try and spend time with him in his final moments. The night before he had passed, I went out with a friend and did not get home until 4 a.m. and shot out of bed right and early at 7:30 and rushed to the nursing home. Within the next few hours, his decline was clear. I had stepped into the hallway to call my brother, and when I returned, my grandfather had already left his physical body. This was the first time in my adult life I had lost a loved one, and I had taken it pretty hard. After a day full of mourning, I drove myself an hour and a half back to Hendersonville in the pouring rain because I had work the next day. When I arrived home, my partner was not there. I walked back to my bedroom, wiped my eyes, and tried to settle in for the evening. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the shadow of a tall man in what appears to be 1950s era business attire and a top hat.
Wow.
Walked out of my hallway bathroom, peeked into my bedroom, and proceeded to walk down the hallway out of my front door. As you can imagine, I was absolutely losing my mind. It would be a year or so before I saw a photo of another spirit that jolted this memory back into my body. A family member had gifted me a book that told tales of the haunted Carolina coastline. In this book was an illustration of the gray man, which I will attach, and I did look at that photo. It's the classic gray man photo.
Okay.
And so he often appears before or after major tragedies, normally hurricanes, natural disasters, etc., which did not fit my scenario at all, but the photo was so similar I couldn't believe it. This then sent me down the Hat Man rabbit hole. To this day, I'm not sure which I saw that night, but I took it as a sign that everything would be okay. I hope you guys enjoyed the story, and I would love to hear your thoughts on what I may have seen that night. Stay spooky. So, first off, I have a couple theories here. I don't necessarily think it would be the gray man, and the reason being is because you're 100% correct. It usually does denote some kind of natural disaster. And typically any kind of, not to say that the gray man can't have other lore, just like the Hat Man has come to acquire, as we've found out. But typically, I've always heard of the gray man being on the specifically South Carolina beaches. Yeah. But also could very well be on like the Outer Banks and things like that as well.
I've heard one or two stories of him on the Georgia coastline, but
sense.
I think it's just kind of that the way that folklore stretches,
right?
It just gets spread really thin.
But it would make sense that the gray man's imagery would remind you of this, because the gray man and the Hat Man do have very similar expressions of how people describe them. I would feel like this could either be a Hat Man experience, but I also feel like this wouldn't be out of the possibility of being a visitation from your late grandfather presenting the way he would have wanted to be.
Yeah, that was actually the first thing that kind of popped into my head, was that mostly it's the fact that you could make out the 1950s business attire.
Right.
Because in many cases, Gray Man and Hat Man alike, you don't get solid descriptions of the clothing that they're wearing. Mostly it's a top hat, a shadowy figure in a top hat, and sometimes you'll get like little bonuses. But the fact that you can make it out to be like 1950s business attire suggests that this is a person whose maybe most vital part of their life, the most primary time of their life was in the 50s. And we kind of hold on to that definition of who we are. When we die, you don't pass and you're the old person that you were when you passed. You're oftentimes the idealized self. And the idealized self can be any age. And it's interesting, too, because then it comes to the question of the top hat. Mm. If you're showing up with a top hats usually denote grandeur, celebration. You don't just wear a top hat normally.
Right.
At least not in the last century. Top hats denoted special occasion, and oftentimes celebratory occasions. So I do find it interesting, and it is worth the deep dive that you took.
Yeah,
it makes perfect sense that you would find everything you could about that, and they do link. They absolutely link. But there's also the pattern of movement that he made, like through your house and out the door. Not typical Hat Man necessarily. Hat Man is usually predatory in a way and kind of comes at you or towards you rather than it almost sounded like a residual ghost in a way.
Right.
It was just heading out. And so that leaves another layer, which is because of the sudden loss or the recent loss of a loved one, you are really close to the veil. You can see through it. And so if there was a spirit there all along that you couldn't see normally, through your grief, through the motions of opening your mind up to receiving messages from beloved past loved ones, you might be just able to witness, because we don't really talk about that all that often, is the fact that when we're really emotionally invested in somebody who has passed, our hearts, our minds, our souls are reaching into the void. And a lot of people have their first like momentous experience with the paranormal while they're in this state.
Right.
And it's because we're not actively like holding a séance or anything, but it is kind of the same notion. You are reaching out. You're reaching out to someone you lost, someone you miss, someone you love. And in that act, you are becoming more perceptive and more aware. So it's possible that you just encountered the ghost of that house.
Yeah. And you were sleep deprived from what it sounds like. So.
Well, could it have been her grandfather?
Well, that's kind of what I was saying is that I was like, it's very possible because that would have been in the same time period of when it would have more likely have happened. And also this could have been the expression that he would have chosen because, I mean, he was dealing with Alzheimer's towards the end of his life. Sure. This could have been the memory that just kind of stuck.
Yeah, the moment of vitality, the strength of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it very well could have been, maybe he went to see a show or something and he loved that performance. I obviously, I don't know your grandfather, but I'm trying to picture, because my grandfather also was from Charlotte and lived in that same period. So I'm trying to think of photos of when he would have dressed in the similar manner. And the only time I would think he'd wear a top hat, which he was not a very grandiose person in general, but the only time I'd think of that is when he went to the theater. And so,
or weddings,
or things like
great
that.
Celebrations, theater, weddings. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
so Reagan commented and said it actually makes a lot of sense that he would come to visit. This grandfather had tons of spiritual experiences in life, and mentally he was in his younger years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that would make a ton of sense then, that he'd pick an expression of that time.
Yeah, I think that is one of the most diabolical pieces to the Alzheimer puzzle is in their lucid moments, they look and see that they're very old, and it doesn't add up to them. They don't understand why they're so old because they have lost a lot of the processing that would have happened, in those later years, and they imagine or feel that they're much younger.
But nonetheless, I hope that's how your grandfather is expressing himself as a spirit, because that's pretty cool.
He's going out dressed to the nines.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that we've gotten so many stories just throughout Ghostmail of grandparents right after death checking in on the grandchildren.
I would say that it is, in my life, the most common ghost story is the elder family member who passes. Sometimes it's parent, sometimes it's grandparent, but that is by and large the most common ghost story out there is on the night my beloved person passed.
Yeah,
they came to me. I saw them, or in the days that followed, I saw them. I had this experience, which you could easily say, well, that's just human psychology. That's just your brain, tripping the proper sequence of mental juice to cause that kind of hallucination. But I never question it. I will always go to the bat that yes, that is a ghost, and yes, you did have that experience.
She said he was super spiffy for sure.
Super, super spiffy.
We like it.
Yeah, it's a great story though, and if I had to put my bet on what it was, I would say it's your grandfather out of anything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but we did do a little mini episode at one point about the gray man in the Carolinas. So if anybody listening is interested in hearing more about that story, if you dig deep into the archives, you'll find it somewhere.
Digging,
yeah. But all right, well, Reagan, thank you so much, and same to you as well as Jessica. If you have more stories, which it seemed like you said you did, please send them in. We'd love to hear more because that was already a great story. But all right. So this next one comes from Lewis, and this was a Savannah Paranormal Museum experience.
What?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
Huzzah.
All right. So the email was titled Savannah Paranormal Museum, a hauntingly fun experience.
Wow.
I'm sure we're going to get a lot more of these in the future.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I would love to. That's super cool.
I do. A lot of people do come through with ghost stories, and I'm like, oh, you should send it to the Ghostmail at Haunted City podcast. But I think that we will be hearing more from people who are anxious to tell us their story.
Absolutely. All right. So I first visited the museum during its soft opening when everything was still being set up. That's how I discovered the Emeraldine, and that Emeraldine isn't a fan of puns. So when I heard about a Light in the Dark event, I absolutely had to go. So we've definitely crossed paths, Lewis. Because that was actually a really fun event. Because that was, if you're not familiar with what that event was, basically we had me in Emeraldine's room doing an Essie's method for each of the groups as they came through. Chris was telling ghost stories, and then the Savannah psychics were talking about,
psychic phenomena.
Exactly.
And,
So it was a very cool event, and I know we're going to be doing more of those in the future. So definitely, if that sounds interesting, keep an eye out for it. But to keep things organized, I'll recount my experiences in roughly chronological order. When we first arrived, I gave my sister a tour, sharing some of the stories I remembered from my first visit, TikToks, or the podcast. As we entered the section focusing on Savannah and Southern folklore, I felt a strange sensation like something was watching me. I'm used to being looked at when I tell stories, but when I glanced around, no one was there. We eventually greeted Emeraldine so my sister could get a feel for the museum's layout. As we left the room, I was suddenly overwhelmed by the scent and taste of rotting herbs and flowers. Ooh. Definitely not pleasant, which is really interesting. Okay, we'll keep moving on, but we'll give some more insight to that after. But our first stop was a station where Chris was talking about the artifacts. That eerie watching sensation returned, but this time, whatever it was seemed to be looking down at me. When I glanced up at the spot where the external wall met the ceiling, I noticed a cluster of black smoke hovering there, barely moving, just watching, which is very creepy. Chris mentioned the kumanthong and that the amulet had flowers and was it pry or pray? Powder.
It's actually, it's called the 100-year sacred herb powder in the amulet, yes.
Something told me that must have been the source of that awful taste, which is highly possible. Later, we found out the door to the artifact had mysteriously opened. As we moved on and met the Savannah psychics, I felt something walking between the mirror and the Savannah room. Just as I turned around toward it, someone mentioned seeing a blonde girl pass by me. I wonder if she was connected to the boy in the picture. The final experience happened after the event had ended. Chris's wife was hosting another SE session, and wow, it was intense. I would love to know which one that was, because there were a few.
So that was after the whole thing. I think everyone went into Emeraldine's because they had such a great experience earlier in the evening.
So from hearing someone pleading to help or to another voice saying something had escaped into the hall, The session was nothing short of amazing. In conclusion, the event was frightfully fun. I can't wait to see everyone again and find out what happens next. By the way, I'm glad Justin is safe from the demon toast in Madison. I hope you enjoy the quartz I gave you. Okay, great. Lewis, thank you so much. I do enjoy that quartz. I actually bring it on the investigations with us.
Yes.
Yeah, Lewis stopped me at the event and said I was cleaning out my crystal collection, and this one felt like it needed to go with you, and so I bring that with me and keep it in my kit. So yeah, I do. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
But yeah, I think the part that really sticks out to me is the black cluster of smoke and the flowers, because I mean the Kumanthong has definitely calmed down after all of that, but
and just the other day I was saying every now and then I'll get that whiff
of the rot.
And it's like I get nervous because we're kind of relying on that amulet to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And it's like, what happens the day we come in? Because again, the Kumanthong emitted this horrible stench when we first got it.
Yeah,
it was
right.
just really insane, and it just smelled like rotting. It smelled like
Right.
And earth, like wet earth, like mud and rotting, like an animal had died in mud. That was the kind of scent it gave off. Yeah, I don't even think I mentioned that. I think it was Brian said that the entity of the Kumanthong is a black smoky entity, and so it's possible that if it can get out, it can't go far. And
Sure. At the very least, it's definitely locked into this building because of the amulet.
And I want to say that amulet, because we got that amulet from Thailand specifically, to bind and hold. Because apparently there's something on the Kumanthong, we don't know what it is, but there's some charm either built into it or hanging off of its ponytail that is really the thing that holds it and binds it. But it had a merry dance outside of the Kumanthong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's entirely possible. But the flower thing, that makes the most sense. Otherwise, the only other artifact I could think of that would possibly emit that kind of flowery smell would be the salt that has the herbs mixed in.
The salt does have a lot of herbs mixed in. And we do have a portrait of Mrs. Bowles, but they say that's
true.
a lavender perfume. People can smell a perfume, so I don't think it was that.
Yeah. Because those are the only ones that I can think of that have like kind of that.
The scent, yeah.
Yeah. Because otherwise, rotting smells, those are plenty objects that kind of give that smell.
Sure.
Yeah, because the Kumanthong's one of them. The Howdy Doody at one point.
Well, yeah. It had soaked in a lot of water and was quite water damaged when we got them.
Yeah. But fantastic. And I'm so excited to hear more of these stories as they come in, because I mean, y'all have already been getting calls and stuff from people who have had experiences. And
yes,
whatnot.
We get more and more experiences. Lots of people seeing Jeb move. Lots of people getting menaced by Charlotte. Lots of people having just solid and what's interesting is they're coming in categorically. Because so many people are having the same experiences. It's like, okay, that is helping us determine, what kind of interactions people are having, if they're having the same sensation.
Kind of like Ghostmail.
It is kind of like Ghostmail.
Yeah.
On their way out, they're like, can you tell me more about this? I was like, what did you feel?
The only other ones are Emeraldine specifically, and I think that's mostly around people.
She's snappy. And what's really fascinating, and this has happened to just a small handful of people. Most people can communicate with Emeraldine. Emeraldine is a doll that's in our museum, and they get a few solid responses, but then they start getting like go away, leave, run, get out.
Gotten that a lot with Emeraldine too.
Yeah, Emeraldine just says that, but every now and then somebody will be in there and she'll say, stay. You stay, sit, stay. And that's weird because it's kind of eerie. There's an eerie notion to a spirit that is almost always telling everyone to leave, to go away, insulting them, and then being like, no, you stay. Don't go. And it's like the first time that happened, it was a group of women, and one of them was like, I said goodbye to Emeraldine, and she said, don't leave me. Like, oh
wow.
that's really weird.
That's concerning coming from her. She's kind of manipulative.
She's highly manipulative.
So it's
and we've definitely had instances where her manipulation has been on display.
She's an antisocial girly.
yeah.
She doesn't have a lot of patience, although she loves her stuff. People have been leaving her stuff, and like every now and then we're like, we got to move this stuff, and we'll ask, can we move this stuff? He's like, no. It's like, do you want us to throw away the trash? No. It's like, and it's clear. It'll come through the radio. It'll come through the box. It's like, no. And it's almost always immediately. I was like, oh, all right, I guess.
Okay.
So we had to put a second table in there.
Yeah.
This morning I heard something in the museum.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was so freaking creepy. I was just sitting here putting up my backdrop that you see behind me right now. And it was like this tinny voice. I thought that Chris or Megan were trying to talk to me through the Ring cameras because it sounded like an old toy going off, or
so
like
weird.
something tinny, like tin can. And it was just so freaky because I couldn't tell what it was trying to say, but it lasted for at least 3 seconds, 3 to 4 seconds. Like,
so it wasn't just like
sentence.
one sound?
It was a sentence.
Oh.
No, it was a sentence. I thought someone was like, "Hey, JT, can you check on this? I don't know what this is," or something like that.
Crazy.
Through the Ring camera, trying to communicate with me because the door was open.
Oh, see, I had thought it was just like, because you said a tinny sound. I didn't think that was like words.
Oh no, it was words.
Oh,
yeah.
It was words. It was like it was on par with like, "Come play with me," like that way. So that's why we thought the Boo Bear was on.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I went out to the Boo Bear, and the Boo Bear was not on.
And even Isla, one of our dogs, who was here with JT, acknowledged it and got alert.
She's a hunting dog, so like she immediately was like she looked over, and I also looked over, and then whenever she hears anything in there, she gives like a low growl. So she did like a low growl, and I was like, well. Crap.
That's nice. Also weird coming from the fact that a couple days ago, JT and I, because we just got back from Key West, we, on our way down, stopped to stay with my parents. So we're at my parents' house, and Chris and Megan are like, "JT, did you just walk through the museum?"
So that was really weird because
you did text me that.
we were getting a Japanese demon doll was being delivered. And so we're in here, and we just heard clear as day this door open and close, and like this big sound. And so Megan came into the Savannah room, and as she's coming to the Savannah room, she saw you passing from this door towards the artifact room. And then when she looked at the window, she saw you passing in the window. So it was like you were going towards, the office area, like into the artifacts room. And she just came back and says, "Oh no, JT's here." I was like, "Oh, okay." And because we were all like, "What the hell was that?" And Megan was like, "It's just JT." I was like, "Oh, okay." So we're sitting there, we're waiting, but in Megan's mind, you had come into the museum, but you hadn't left. You hadn't made yourself known. You hadn't said anything. And so after a while, we were just like standing in there going, "JT, JT."
Yeah.
And then Megan did a full loop, and she's like, "I guess he left."
Then they text me, and
I was like, "Did you just?"
I'm like,
and I'm in Tampa.
far away.
Yeah,
I'm in
I was
Tampa.
like,
Yeah.
and I was like, JT was not here at all. And Megan just like froze up, and then was like, "Nope, okay."
Yeah. Which I'm not surprised to hear, because for one, this door, if you've been here long enough, you remember that we used to film in the center of that space.
Yeah.
And this door would open on its own all the time in the background. And that was a really common occurrence. But also this building, from what we've gathered from being here in general for so many years, there's an entity that does tend to shapeshift to cause,
Mimicry. Absolutely.
Yeah, just to cause a reaction, because it's what kind of keeps it around. So many people have had interactions with this same entity in a bajillion different facets of saying, "It looked like so-and-so. It looked like me dressed up in my costume when we were doing the show and stuff." We've had so many different versions of this mimic. But so I guess it's watching you now.
Yeah. So come to the museum.
Come to the museum.
You'll
might
see me even if I'm not here.
Yeah,
Yes.
even when he's not here, he shows up.
And it made me wonder, because of the the blonde girl part in here.
Oh,
so
right.
I think I had blonde hair at this point. And I've been in this building for the majority of the time with blonde hair. So I wondered if that wouldn't have been the same entity, but
pretending to be you.
To be me.
Although
because
I was taking that to be child.
Interesting.
Because they were linking it to the picture of the board.
Oh,
so
okay.
I was like, was there a child here? I'm trying to think, were there children here? And I don't remember there
being any kids.
Yeah.
Because it was mostly an adult or older teenage crowd.
Yeah.
I don't recall there being any kids, but yeah, nonetheless. Well, first off, Lewis, thank you so much for visiting.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Anybody who comes to visit, if you have an experience, you're more than welcome to send it to Ghostmail. That way we can read it on the show, or we can make sure that they get it as well. But I think that is our last Ghostmail of this episode.
Yes. You want to tell them real fast what we're about to do and why we have to cut it just a tad early?
Yeah, so this episode's going to be a hair shorter because we are about to hop onto a Zoom call with a descendant of the Jersey Devil.
That is correct. Somebody had posted a TikTok where the Jersey Devil was featured in the TikTok. And the response was this woman basically stated, my 8th great grandmother was Mother Leeds, which is the canonical story of the Jersey Devil, is that Mother Leeds had 12 children. And while she was pregnant with the 13th child, she cursed the child because she didn't want another child. Mm-hmm. And when it came out, it was a horse-faced bat thing that flew away.
Into the Pine Barrens.
And became the legendary Pine Barrens baby.
Horned baby. Who knows? But yeah, so we're about to go talk to her.
Y'all gotta join Patreon. If you're listening to this and you're not a pair junkie and you're like on the edge, just fall off the edge.
That's the kind of thing you're missing.
Exactly. And we bring people like this all the time because, being that we have a whole podcast talking about paranormal stuff, they tend to fall into our path where we meet people who have interesting connections to paranormal activity or folklore or what have you. And so we always live stream when we have these guests. But alrighty, y'all. So thank you so much again for watching today's episode. And again, if you have a ghost story you'd like to send us, it is ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com. But with that, my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.